Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today is a really cool one to do for me, especially because today we're here with my friend Josh, who got top 4 at the VA Beach Regional with Pan. Now, just a quick little thing. Me and Josh go back to the time that we both started playing Dragon Ball. We've been friends since our start of Dragon Ball, so it's really cool to get to interview him. Josh, what's going on, man?
Thanks, Joey. I'm just super happy with this deck and that you're letting me show it off to everyone.
For sure, dude. You've been on Pan since it came out. You have not put this leader down. There's been a few other decks you've dabbled with, but you have not put Pan down. So what's your affinity for this leader?
I think it's just really fun, really generic. You'll see in the deck, it's giving me a lot of ways to be very creative. I think right now I have about 4 different Pan builds, but this is the only one that's actually really good.
All right, very nice. So we're going to get into the list. You guys are going to be pretty surprised if you haven't seen it already. So here we go. We're starting off with a blue-red engine here, right? So we got our 4 Beerus, our 4 coolers. Pretty nice now that you got that winter cooler, huh? And then we have 4 full power Frieza and 4 Mecha Frieza Energy Blight. So me and you were just talking a little bit before we started recording about how blue-red, I think, is a really solid rogue engine. You have your obvious leaders for it. People have been playing Launch, people have been playing Cooler. But Pan is actually a really interesting one because it almost operates like Launch in a way where you're playing battle cards on your opponent's turn and you're drawing via doing that, right? So you said you had some very interesting experiences with the deck over the weekend. Maybe you can talk about that now.
Yeah, not much over the weekend. This deck has been, for the most part, put together, minus a few pieces since set 9, when a lot of the core, these red-blue cards came out. And I've terrorized my locals with it since then. But they kind of figured it out a little bit, and it became a normal tier 2 deck at our locals. So I was kind of hesitating to bring it places, but at these events no one knew exactly how to play against it because no one knew what it did because I put a Pan leader down in front of them. And
right.
half of them didn't play at that time period and asked me what does that do. So for this event I underestimated it, but I think going forward I would probably have it at the right place.
Awesome.
For the red-blue engine, the deck it's just the core of the deck essentially. It lets you play on curve and still be able to play defense, which is very important for the first 2 turns. And I think Cooler is one of the best cards in the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. One thing I did want to ask you about, though, that I just kind of thought of, did you try Hercule Boo, and did you ever think it might have a slot in the deck, maybe not needing 4 full power Friezas, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's 4 because for a long time I played 3, but it's the card you want to charge turn 1 the most because you don't really want to get rid of your super combo or cooler, and optimally you would be charging that so you can be charging your energy blights afterwards. I also like holding off on energy blight, charging it turn 1 because sometimes you need it to trigger another card in the deck. Hercule Boo just doesn't do as much. I didn't really care about bouncing cards back the same way. I think it also costs a blue to arrive, doesn't it?
Yeah, I believe it does.
Which is a lot harder for this deck. I know you untap with Beerus and stuff, but you need to be able to arrival the card without seeing those. And sometimes, if you ever need to tap down that blue, it's hard to get it back.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so here's the main engine of the deck that people probably were not aware of. So we're playing 4 Frieza Spaceship. Now, I know you've been, talking to me about a Spaceship Pan deck for the longest time. This stuff came out, around, set 5, set 6? So you've been on this for a super long time. So the fact that you've added this with the red-blue stuff is really, really cool. And this is where the deck just generates an insane amount of draws, right? Because every single turn you have Spaceship, you're generating an additional draw and putting a body on the board, and you're actually able to swap into the 5-drop Frieza, which a lot of red-blue decks that play that Frieza can't actually do. So with the Spaceship engine, is Spaceship your number 1 priority in the mulligan? Do you send everything back for that, or not so much?
I'll keep a red-blue card, because if you don't see that turn 1, then you don't want to charge it turn 2, and then your super combos has 0 efficiency. So usually, but yeah, and I'll also keep a 2-drop if I see one in the first 2 turns.
Gotcha. So a perfect hand would be a red blue, a Frieza Spaceship, and then some 2-drop. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'll keep my 2-drop because like drawing spaceship and not having a 2-drop to play off of it, it feels really bad.
Gotcha. And then in earlier versions of the deck, you were also playing the 1-drop to swap into the 2s and whatnot. But of course, back then, I don't think you were really playing the blue-red stuff. So did you ever like mess around with the 1-drop in this type of build just to start getting the swap going, or you really just want to rely fully on spaceship?
Yeah, I don't really. It just like a lot of times I just don't do anything during my turn and just draw a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And like leave all your energy open for defense, because like red has good inherent defense with the new cards that we got, like Violent Rays and stuff. But like Pan's still not like the greatest leader in the world. You get a lot of value on her, and you just cycle a lot, so you see a lot of cards using her. But sorry. Like you need this, like, so you need your energy open sometimes in order to defend, and like playing on curve is so important. But like the most important thing I realized was just to make sure that you played a battle card every turn. So being able to spaceship at the end of every turn, and then leave your energy open for other cards to play during your opponent's turn was like invaluable. And then the spaceship also draws a card, so like that's how you start actually gaining advantage.
Gotcha. So now that we have the main deck and like the main engine here, before we get into like some more of the techie stuff, what would you say are like the good and bad matchups for this deck?
Mecha is actually one of the best matchups, especially the Aegis build. You have a lot of barrier removal in this deck, and you don't swing in the first few turns at all, so they have to awaken themselves, and they can only use one extra card a turn. You also don't get affected by Shapil or anything, and like they don't play a lot of removal in the deck, or a lot of builds don't. So you can kind of take it at your own pace. I don't know exactly about the new blue-yellow build that's been popular. I haven't really been able to successfully test against it so far, but because I know it's more aggressive and that can be tough.
Right.
But like little weenie, we always call them weenie rush at my locals, but like decks that just go super wide with small bodies, like Cooler is super good against.
Right, kind of like Vegex, some kind of like Red Bardock, stuff like that.
Stuff that really wants to get aggressive on like turn 3-4 is probably its best matchup, because like you're really weak turn 1 and 2 because you're turning multicolor, and then you're playing spaceship your first 2 turns almost every game. Unless it, like a deck doesn't let you. Like if you play against Red Broly, a lot of times I'll skip out playing spaceship on turn 2.
Right.
Because my entire goal is to survive and then like drop a Cooler to like combo all in against.
Gotcha. So something much more aggressive like a Red Broly, maybe like a Reboot Gohan could be a little bit tougher then.
Yeah. So like, yeah, the like turn 1-2 kill decks are insanely tough in this deck. They're not like impossible to play, but without the appropriate tech cards, they're insanely hard. And then King Vegeta is a really weird matchup, because when you play during your opponent's turn, his autos draw trigger first, so all your battle cards, like depending on which cards they have on board, get minus power. And then when you get 5k, you're not 20k, so you don't cycle.
Oh, and that's interesting. That's actually a really interesting interaction.
Yeah, so it can be kind of a pain in the butt.
Gotcha. So, all right, moving on to our negates here. So you're playing 3 Violent Rays, 3 Topo. Makes a lot of sense. But what's really cool is actually King Vegeta's imposing presence is for sand-only leaders, and Pan is a pretty much forgotten about red sand-only leader. So it's actually really nice that this is some like indirect support for Pan. So obviously you got your Violent Rays for your Dark Broly's, you got your Topos for your kind of like just go wide stuff, and kind of like everything in general. And then King Vegeta is just like, I think it's like a really good just coverall. Like it really just works a lot against a lot of different matchups, so this ratio seems really good to me.
Yeah, so like I usually try and hold off on my Violent Rays till the end of games if possible. Topo's really the most effective in the mid game when they're not going for Fatal, because people will push through Topo, but they can't push through Violent Rays.
Right.
Topo's cool because it gives you a body. It's a 5k combo if you don't use it, and it and you cycle a card.
Yeah. In this deck, Topo doesn't have a discard cost, essentially, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, so, like, it's a really good card. And then King Vegeta's Imposing Presence is probably the card that's, like, overperformed the most for me. One weakness this card had before is that it was really hard to play through Koizukai. And between this card and Senzu Bean, like, you just got a huge advantage. I keep telling my friends this card I think is just better Senzu Bean in my deck because you draw so much, you kind of always have like extra copies of Spaceship and stuff. That by the end of games, like you get to play this. You're hanging at 3 life, and like 3 life is such a good number for the game right now because I think like a lot of decks are going in with double strikers to beat you down. And like, there's not a lot of like triple strikers in the game right now, so like you can kind of hang out on 3 energy pretty safely a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And the nice thing is, the thing I love about King Vegeta is like you don't have to pitch a card if you have an energy, but if you don't have the energy, then you can then pitch the card if you need to. But what's nice is like it's almost got the similar floodgate style of Violent Rage without always having discard cost, which is nice. So it just seems like what we've gone through so far, the deck just does a lot of things really efficiently, and it is a little dependent on seeing that spaceship. But like once you do get that engine rolling, it seems like the snowball is kind of insane. But here we have some more tech stuff. You are playing 3 Senzu Bean, which, like you mentioned before, is excellent because there are a lot of decks in this format that do go wide with small guys. The 1 Double Strike, of course, you want it to end games, and then 2 Kaioken in the main. So, were you expecting a lot of like mecha? Is that kind of why you mained it, or some other reason?
Yeah, one of the main reasons. It just doubles in this deck. Like another tough matchup for it is Invoker, so having this in the main just helps if you ever face it.
Gotcha.
Just like there's like certain times like a piece of removal is like hard to come by, especially if, on like turn like 3 and 4 when you're kind of like waiting to play Frieza, but you don't really like have a bunch. He also has Deflect and pops 20Ks, which is like insanely like good, just wiping a board. And then like when they try and reestablish, that's when we start. So that's when you start playing cooler on them and stuff.
Right, gotcha. And then for some of just like our big beaters here, you're playing 3 combo attack coolers, so you want to just be able to recycle your Tyrannical blows, Tyrannical assaults and whatnot. We have the 1 fighting against Fates, one of the best overwhelm finishers in the game, and then 1 Supreme Kai of Time, Space Time Unraveler. I wonder what you think about this. My best usage of Kai has just been the 1-drop 40k beater. Like, do you get the removal a lot, or do you just like literally play it, swing, drop a double strike on it, call it a day?
I did that a lot.
Yeah.
Giving it a free 5k. Especially with the fighting against Fates, giving it a free 5k for the turn makes it a 30k.
That is pretty nuts. That is pretty nuts.
Yeah. But like Supreme Kai of Time, but not only that, on defense I actually get a lot of usage out of it too. I stopped a lot of because Cooler doesn't interact with unisons and leaders, so it's probably like where you're weakest on defense. So like a lot of times, if they attack with the battle card first, I would like King Vegeta's opposing presence. It would essentially stop that attack, and then I'd play Supreme Kai of Time, and they wouldn't be able to attack with their leader or unison anymore.
That's actually, yeah, that's a pretty sweet defense, especially like you said, like Cooler can't really stop unisons and leaders, so now you have that kind of like coverall, which is insanely nice.
Also, just going back to if they swing with the battle card with under King Vegeta's opposing presence, and you have Frieza on board, they do mill every single time they swing with the battle card too.
Yeah.
It came up like 1 or 2 times. And then the Cooler is really good because like a lot of times what it'll do is it'll add it when I play Clan Commander Frieza, and then I'll use it to bounce my Clan Commander Frieza during my opponent's turn. I'll draw a card off of that, and then when it comes back to my turn, I'll replay that same Clan Commander Frieza with Spaceship.
And just generate like even more draws. That's like almost like flute level stuff for anyone who watched this video who remembers Legendary Flute. That's like some flute level draws right there. That's kind of insane.
That's when the deck starts drawing like silly amounts of cards.
Gotcha.
Especially because it lets me play a battle card without comboing, so I can still pick up a life because I don't main any Self Awaken.
Right. All right, so you want to just like run us through the side deck?
Yeah, sure. I played 1 Max Power Command Meta and 1 Beerus Ball, and they kind of similar usages, just for different decks. They're really just to protect you when you play your 5-drop Frieza. So against green, you want to be able to protect him when you from Frieza. And the max power is to remove a Sin Shenron right before you play it. I played another King Vegeta and Violent Rays, the 4th copy of each one, just because sometimes one of them's bad and the other one's really good.
Right.
So I just found it easy to play the 4th and swap it in. Like Dark Broly, the last Violent Rays comes in, and everything's so big already. King Vegeta isn't very good against that deck. I played 2 Frieza's Death Ball. These used to be in the main, but I think like decks, they're really for decks that go tall. It's nice to be tapped out, and then your opponent combos a bit, and then you like Beerus untap, and then you play Frieza's Death Ball. and like then all of a sudden you're at like a super high amount.
Right.
Deborah was just for hand control. It's a draw 3 in the deck.
True.
If you ever trigger it.
That's so funny.
So yeah, so it's like you can actually sometimes just outdraw their hand control, especially against like OG Broly. Mecha Gabura was just for Rogue and Dark Broly. Fu came in a lot over the weekend. Anything that essentially couldn't disrupt it on play, it came in against.
And then just the 2 Gotenks unisons.
Oh yeah, the Gotenks was for Invoker matchups. Anything that played, and anything that wanted to stall me. If you didn't make me pick up life, I put it in just because it self-awakened. It also, I had this idea that I would try and put it in against King Vegeta if I played it. So if they ever tried this with my leader, it would just get 10k power for the turn.
That is pretty funny. Yeah, so I mean, going through the deck, I mean, it seems like you're very happy with the build, and you've been testing it technically for like probably a year straight, if not longer. So, any changes you'd make to the build after this weekend?
I don't know. Kaioken needs to be in the main. This is a tech choice for the format. And even then, it was good at times and just bad at others. I don't know. For Deathball might go back in because there was a lot of King Cold represented, and that deck's a tough matchup also.
Gotcha.
I did beat 2 of them, so it's not like an impossible matchup, but like Deathball helped a lot because like they try and go tall with their leader. That's about the only change I would make. The core of the deck is really strong, and it's kind of just whatever tech choices you want to make.
Very cool. All right, now that we're at the end, any shout outs you want to throw out there?
Yeah, my team, Meta Monster Gaming, like they helped a lot. It was fun staying with them, and then shout out to everyone else at the regional. Everyone was super nice, and like just inviting in general. I mean, they were nice before they knew I played Pan.
Awesome, dude. All right, man. Thank you for your time, Josh. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.